Okay, welcome everyone. My name is Grace Atkins. I work here at the libraries. I'm the Outreach and Open Education Librarian. So I do a lot of marketing and content creation, so Creative Commons is important to me for those reasons. But also with open education, I'm working to make education more affordable by having content be more free and shareable. So Creative Commons is also important to me for those reasons. But before we get started, I do kind of want to get a feel. I was talking earlier with the people in person of why they're here. I'd also like to hear from the people online of what brings them to this workshop. Um, so if people online can go ahead and type that in the chat box for our moderator, that would be great. And then people in the classroom, we talked a bit about why you're here, but can you tell me what your majors are, if you know them? I don't know. We'll start over there.
I am Jefferson Hobart. My major is library science.
I'm Hannah, and my major is health science pre-professional. I'm Paige, I'm tech.
Mhm.
I'm Lauren,
Mark, mechanical engineering.
So we've got quite a bit of STEM going on, which is cool because I think that this can apply. I'll get into my examples, and I think about this a little more with like art and marketing. Yeah.
The people in the chat say, one said that Sharon said, no, I'm here because I want to be. I'm here for the Discovery College program. Kathleen said, I work at the hospital with patient education, and Sharon additionally added that her major is nursing. I'm here because she does a lot of patients at contact vision.
Yeah. Do you guys do, okay. Thank you for the online people. Sharon, this one's for you. You're here because you want to be. Appreciate you. So for anyone else here, do you ever do presentations? And do you anticipate doing presentations at a conference? At the very least, you will know how to copyright your slides. So you've got that going. I do want to start with an activity. Oh wait, no, I got to start with something else. So I love Creative Commons so much, and there's so much to talk about that I can just go on and on and on. So I'm trying to keep it a very simple overview today, and I'm trying to keep this quote in mind. Don't come to me with the entire truth. Don't bring me the ocean if I feel thirsty, nor heaven if I ask for light. So if I go down a rabbit hole, I'll try to come back out. Disclaimer. Okay, I want to start by talking about the misconception. Everything I need is freely accessible online, therefore it's okay to use. False. If something is freely available, that doesn't necessarily mean it's free to use. I think we all know that on some level, but when we're hurrying to put slides together like today, we don't always think about where'd we get our images? Is it okay to use them? This Google image is actually in the public domain, so I didn't have to cite it on this slide. I do want to do an activity. This might not be the most fun for those online, but for that reason, I've got a few slides. If you don't have a piece of paper, pass them down. And if you don't have something to write with, come and get something. So for our first activity, or to begin our activity, it's a three-part thing. If you could only use a third of the paper, that would be great. Go ahead and draw anything that comes to mind, anything at all, and you've got about 60 seconds, or as soon as I see you're done. For those playing at home, I drew a unicorn, and I forgot its mane. 10 seconds. Okay, pass your great work of art on to someone else.
Is there like a specific way?
Whoever, just someone new. So now go ahead and modify, edit, revise, whatever you want to do to that original work. You can draw on top of it or next to it, whatever you want to do. I passed it on to my colleague and she put it on a white background and drew a rainbow on top of it. Not much modification there. If you can go all out, you can make it something totally different. Again, you've got about 60 seconds. I'll give you about 10 more seconds. All right, last step of the activity. Give it to someone who hasn't worked on step 1 or 2, and then go ahead and do that right now because that could get messy. And for those online, this is the last step and then we'll all come together again. Okay, so now you have 2 options. You can either commercialize it in some way or you can social media-ize it in some way. By that I mean, imagine making it into a meme or a GIF, or GIF if you want to be perfect. I realize that it's a piece of paper, so just imagine how you would animate it. Since commercializing is a little easier on a piece of paper, I put mine on a mug. I feel like this could sell for $5 to $10, depending on the quality of the mug. Oh, there you go. It's like advertising. Love it. We have a range of creative things happening in the room. Go ahead, finish up, give your work back to the original creator. How do you feel about what's come back to you? Show of hands, how many people theirs was commodified in some way? kind of, over half. And then some of it was social media. This might seem like a silly exercise, but with how quickly things move with technology, something you can create can move pretty fast. I have a really fun example. I do want to say, though, with the Creative Commons license, if I had just put CC BY NC SA 4.0 along with my name on the original work, no one could have stolen it and made it into a mug. That makes sense, right? You all know what those letters mean? Okay, by the end of the workshop, you will. I drew a unicorn because this is a real-life story that happened in the last year. Does this look familiar to anyone? Okay. This is a mug of a unicorn farting into a funnel that is powering a car. I never thought I would say that in a professional setting. This image was used by the Tesla company. It was made by a potter in Colorado, and the image was used in the user interface for Tesla. It was also used in marketing. The artist, the backside of the mug says, "Electric cars are good for the environment because electricity comes from magic." No permission was asked of the artist to use this. The artist's daughter actually took to Twitter and said, "Hey y'all, Grimes' boyfriend," great way to call out Elon Musk, "ripped off my dad's art. This is a true story. What do you have to say for yourself?" and tagged him. It did become a major lawsuit. They have since settled, and we don't know the disclosed amount, but it was probably quite a bit of money, which is exciting for the artist, I hope. And you might say, well, anyone could draw something similar. Like, how do we know this wasn't just someone at the Tesla company who came up with something similar? Well, before the lawsuit, Elon Musk actually tweeted the mug. So we know for a fact that he got this mug somehow that was made by the artist and then used the image, commercialized it without any payment or permission. So, you know, this is a pretty wild example, but these things do happen every day. And with Creative Commons licenses, they can be avoided. So we are where we are. People online, if you want to go to creativecommons.org, feel free. People in the classroom can also go to it. I don't mind you browsing around. That's totally fine with me. So Creative Commons is the name of an organization that has created these licenses. They're not lawyers. They don't, well, I'll get into that in a little bit, but they've created these licenses that you can apply yourself to your work. I think that creative licenses articulate that space between all rights reserved and the public domain. For those of you in person, when you drew something, with the exception of the Pokeball that you drew, when you draw something and you put it into, when you put your work into a tangible form, you automatically have copyright. Did you guys know that you don't have to apply for copyright, you just have it? By tangible form, I mean the words I'm saying out loud are just going into the air. But the words I'm saying out loud are being recorded, and I have copyright over that recording. So if you can, you know, hold something or replay something, you have copyright. So you have copyright of your work. Of course, you've probably all heard of the public domain, really old things that we can all use. What is it now? Prior to 1923? We all have, yeah, I think that's right. But basically, after a certain period of time, things are in the public domain. You don't have to pay the author. Yeah.
So is fan art okay? Or just not like Nintendo? Or,
We got a question about fan art, and that's kind of a gray area. I think we should come back to that one. That's really interesting. Yeah. Well, I mean, like, you don't own the Pokeball.
Yeah.
Oh, man. We got to get into CC licenses because that's a really complicated example. So I think, no, you're fine. So I think this is really black and white. You either have all the rights or you have none of the rights with public domain. With Creative Commons, it's the space in between. What do I mean by that? When you put a Creative Commons license on a work, you're telling the public that they're free to copy, share, edit, remix, keep, use They can do all of these different things with your work. So a good example is they can make a meme or a GIF out of it. They can put it on a mug and sell it. Now, is it all or nothing though? Because I know if I created something, I would want people to share it or copy it or edit, but I wouldn't want people to sell it. So this is where the attributes come in. When you have a Creative Commons license, you have 4 things you can choose to put on your license: BY, NC, SA, ND. Has anyone seen these before? So BY stands for attribution. That means that if I have that on my license, you have to use my name when you give it credit. NC with the $ crossed out, does anyone have a guess at what that would do? You can't sell it. NC stands for non-commercialization. Shoot, what does it stand for? Something like that. We'll find out. SA is a little complicated. That stands for share alike. And what that means is if I use a specific license, a specific set of attributes, the person who goes on to use my work has to use the same one. And I can provide an example of that. And then ND with an equal sign. Any guesses as to what that is? ND stands for no derivatives. That means you can use my work, but you can't edit it in any way. You can't make a derivative work. So those are the 4. And again, it's not all or nothing. You can use them in a variety of combinations. There are all the combinations. And when I say put a license on something, I literally mean put this image on your work. And that's all you have to do to license. You don't have to register. You don't have to do anything else. It's the image and then a link to the website that explains what it means. So for example, I don't know if you noticed when you came in, but on my title slide, I have the image CC BY. I'm okay with anyone using these slides, editing them, sharing them. Heck, you can even sell them because I don't know why this would be used. Like, I don't know what you would do, but I would love to find out, and you can keep the money. Good for you. Oftentimes, I'll recommend people do CC by NC because that just, covers you so that no one can profit off of your own work. Let's see. The most restrictive license is that one in the bottom right corner, CC by NC ND. So that is, you can use my work, you have to credit me, you can't profit off of it, and you can't make any derivatives. Like, that's kind of barely anything, right? That's basically like, you can look at my slides. Cool, thanks. But I guess you can also keep them. So there's, that's not nothing. Here's one of my favorite examples when talking about Creative Commons. So this is a graphic created by a librarian from the Nebraska Public Library System. It says libraries are for everyone. It has a diverse group of people all looking at globes, which I prefer to a book because libraries are much more than books. But it's a really cool image, and I wanted to use it here at our library for an event, and I also wanted to use it on our social media. So I actually saw this on social media, saw how it was credited, and was able to just click a link and go back to the author's blog. She wrote out exactly how you're allowed to use it, which I really appreciated. Every single thing on her blog is under the license CC by SA. What that means is you can use any of her stuff, but you have to give her credit, and if I make some kind of derivative and I put my own license on it, I have to also use the CC by SA license. I think the best way to think about SA, instead of share alike, think license alike. You have to license the same way. She also gave like a lot more detail beyond that, which again I appreciated because when I make a poster, I don't want to have this credit at the bottom, and she doesn't want that either. She says, don't put my name on it. It's minimalistic art. It will kind of ruin the clean lines and elegance. Totally agree. She says, if you print it out, just write it on the back so that you can easily, oh, this is the author. And then if you're using it online, you can also credit Hafu Boti is the name she uses. I'll explain that in a minute. So I did put this out on the library's social media. I think it was a day where we particularly wanted to push out our message on inclusivity. And it did pretty well. And I went ahead and just said graphic by Hafubuti, and I used her Twitter handle, and she actually responded. Fun fact, I was born in Missouri, heart, cool, cool. So I didn't have to tag her. All I had to do was say the name, but I chose to tag her just for fun because I wanted her to see that we used it. And then if you're interested, Hafubuti stands for Happy Fun Book Time, and it's something she uses in her public library. Her real name's Rebecca McCorkindale. And I'm showing you an example of, on her website, it has the graphic, and it says Hafubuti by Rebecca McCorkindale is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike 4.0 international license. The licenses have gone, I mean, like anything, they've gone through upgrades. So 4.0, we're on the 4th version of these licenses. You might come across something under a 2.0. It generally means the same thing with a few like legalese changes. So just be aware of that. Sometimes people ask me what that means, and that's what that means. So with your Creative Commons licenses, they ensure that your creation is accessible, adaptable, interoperable, and discoverable. Let me return to that example to articulate what that means. So I could access this work easily. I could download it, I could find it. That one's pretty straightforward. As far as adapt goes, it wasn't really in an editable format, but I could put it on social media, I could print it, I could go into Photoshop and make some changes, I could even just start from scratch and mimic the design. So I could adapt it in a lot of different formats and ways. Translate, this has been translated into more than 40 languages. This poster has been so popular that they've just changed the text. And then discover, she has this on her blog, it went viral on social media a few times. But she's also working on putting it into the Wikicommons, Wikipedia's picture collection, so that it can be even more discoverable. So I think, you know, it's all fine to just have your work out there and have your copyright, but if you really want things to be shared easily, it's great to put a Creative Commons license on them. And social media is the perfect example of a time that you really want your work shared. Looking more academically, MIT has OpenCourseWare. Has anyone heard of this? So what this allows, you can take kind of like a prepackaged course as an instructor, and you can use it to teach your class. And they use a Creative Commons license. And this is the kind of thing where now that you know what a Creative Commons license looks like, you are going to see this all of the time. Whereas before, your eyes might not have even like landed on that right on their webpage. So they use a CC by NCSA. Who can tell me what that means? Someone in the room. Go for it. Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna step away from the mic for a second. Share Alike is so weird because basically what it's saying is exactly what you said. You don't take it by the name, you can't sell it. Like that's really the whole license, right? And this just tells me that the next person who uses it also has to do that. And it just keeps going. So I don't know a better way to visualize that. Does that kind of make sense? Ish? Sure. So for those online, I was talking about how Share Alike can be a little confusing because basically it's the license is attribution and non-commercial. And the Share Alike just says that the next person who uses this, remixes it in any way, has to also use attribution and non-commercial, can't profit. And then putting the SA on there just says, this is the license that will be used on every derivative in every use. And that's just how it's gonna be. TED Talks also use Creative Commons licenses. As you can see there, they have $BY, $ crossed out, =. So this one is a little different. It's attribution, you can't profit, and you cannot make any derivatives. I think most people don't realize that. The reason they do that is they don't want you to take a 10-second clip and put it somewhere else completely out of context. I'm sure they have other reasons as well. They want their works to be viewed in their entirety. And if you go to their website and you actually link to their license page, they explain exactly how they want it used. But they also articulate that they don't necessarily want you to download it. They would rather you use their embeddable player. So I think that, again, just because we have the technology and the means to download something and edit something doesn't mean that the author allows us to do that. And that's where you could get into potentially a lawsuit. People all the time say like, oh, what, are the copyright police going to come after me? They came after Elon Musk. I don't know if they'll come after you, but you know, this is the law, so you should know about it. And then I did want to show, like, see, I didn't have to cite that Google image because it is in the public domain. Right where I'm circling with my mouse, Google was the author who uploaded this onto Wikipedia, and it's in the Wiki Commons. So the author did put it in the public domain, and that's just a screenshot of their homepage in 2015. I don't know if I would ever want to put my own work in the public domain. I think it would really depend on what I was doing because I would always want attribution. I feel like since it says Google, like the attribution is inherent, so it was pretty easy decision to put that one in the public domain. So with that, I would like us all to go to the website, and there are 3 things I want to show you on the website. How to choose a license, their FAQ page, because it is so thorough, and I don't know all the answers, but I can almost always guarantee you'll find them. And then we're going to look at the Creative Commons image search.
On the slide 709 says it says public domain, but shows no CC.
Yeah, so the logo for that one is a single C crossed out. The single C stands for copyright, and that it's crossed out tells me they've relinquished their copyright, and it just says public domain. Sometimes you'll also see an image of the number 0, and that just means like 0 rights. When we go to the Creative Commons website, we'll be able to see that as well. I'm glad you called that out. Thank you. Okay, website. Leaving the slides. Oh, Internet Explorer. Okay. Okay, so there's a lot of information on here, but assume you're an author, and I hope you're kind of thinking of things to have in mind of what you might apply a license to. The most obvious is if you're doing slides that you would like people to access and use, or other stuff. So if you're an author, you go to share your work, and I'm familiar enough with licenses that I can just choose one. But if you're not familiar, it's really good to do this choose a license like activity. So you just click on get started. And here it asks you about the license features. So I'm going to think about the slides I created today. I'm going to get real meta. Allow adaptations of your work to be shared. Yes. Allow commercial uses of your work. I'm going to say no. So it tells me down here that this is the license I need to use. And all I have to do is copy this and paste it. And that's it. I have my license. Now, something to keep in mind. Let's say in 2 months, I find that my beautiful slides have been put into some published work, and now someone is profiting from them. Well, all I have to do is go back here, say, you know, oh, sorry, I didn't realize I already used that in my example. Anyway, let's say I want to change it and say I don't want to allow it. I can't do that. Once you choose a license, and I'm pretty sure that for my slides, I actually allowed for commercial use because, again, I just don't anticipate that. So I just have a CC BY. It is CC BY for all eternity. I can't come back, change my mind, add a $ crossed out. it is what it is. So that's why it's really important to understand what these licenses are before you apply them. So that's a big one. Does anyone have any questions on the choosing a license thing? Anyone online? Okay. If we want to move on from that, then at the very top of the page, there's something that says search the commons. This is their old school search. Has anyone ever searched on Google Images before? Yes, you all have. Okay. So this searches across a lot of different image banks, including Google Images. And you can say, you know, I'm going to use this for commercial purposes, so I need to check that box, or I'm going to edit it, so I need to check that box. But if I just want to put it on a slide, I can leave those boxes unchecked and I'll probably get better results. And then I pick which search I want to do. That's all well and good, but they have a new search coming out. It's in their beta mode and I love it. So if you want to click there, see how shiny this is? And this is great because my slides today are a little boring, but oftentimes I like to make slides with just a single graphic of a concept, like a water ripple, if I want to say that I think a concept can grow, you know? So I like that they put in categories. They also put like seasonal things. So if you're creating really anything like autumnal, they've got a bunch of stuff you can use. So I think, you know, you definitely need to check and see what the specific license is. These aren't all editable. I went ahead and clicked on the nature one. And let's say I wanted to use this bird for some reason. This is CC BY 2.0, so all I have to do is provide attribution, and it tells me right down here how to cite it. I know you guys probably use a lot of different citation styles when you're working on an academic paper, and there's whole manuals. The nice thing about these, the creator usually just tells you, here it is, copy and paste this, which is awesome. So that one's pretty easy. Let me see if any of these results were more restrictive. When you hover over it, it shows the image. So far, all of these look like they're just CC BY, which is great because you can do a lot with that. Okay. So that's the searching. What was the third thing? Oh, the FAQs. Okay. I'm going to go back to the Creative Commons website. creativecommons.org. And their FAQs, where do those live? I think I just Googled it before and that's how I got there. Well, that's embarrassing. Oh, do you see it? I don't see it. In the middle? Oh my gosh, help me. This thing? Oh my gosh, there it is. Teamwork makes the dream work. We got there. This is a really thorough FAQ page. I have to go here constantly because I'll be emailed questions. I would consider myself a campus expert, but that doesn't mean I have this memorized. Like, good Lord. Some things on here that are really important. Let's see. One is what to do if you see someone has violated your license. Something really cool that happens there, your license just goes away until the violation is cleared. And what that means is your license says you're relinquishing some copyright, right? So that you can share these things. If someone breaks that, all your rights are restored. Like they all come back and they're up until the thing is cleared up. So a good example, well, I don't know. I don't really want to give an example. I want to talk about other stuff. They have the whole thing on choosing a license. How do you, even like really complex questions like, I applied a CC license to low resolution copies of a licensed work. Can I then like reserve more rights in the high res copy? I don't even know the answer to that, but what a question. Let's see. There was an interesting one today. Oh, this is the big one. How do I properly attribute material offered under Creative Commons license? I think this one's really important because people want there to be like a manual, like if you're using Chicago or MLA or APA and they want it to be a consistent style. Well, it's not always going to be that consistent, but they do have best practices, which is great. Here we go. Sometimes their info is a little buried, but if you open their best practices page, it takes you to a CC Wiki page where they go into way more detail than even the FAQ. And they show you what an ideal attribution is. And here it is, right under this image. The ideal attribution is the title by the author and then the license. That's it. And it keeps it clean. On some of my slides that I was looking at earlier, that I was showing earlier, this is what I did. I did title, author, and then that. Sometimes there isn't always a title. Like I just pulled that slide from someone else and I just said slide from this author and described what her license was. And then they show like this one's fine, you know, like photo by this person, CC by, like it's not ideal, but it still gets the job done. This does not get the job done. Like that doesn't link back to the license description. That really doesn't do anything. And let me show you why linking back to the license description is important. Things change. They change this page a little bit. So somewhere, there it is. Okay. So there are three licenses or three layers to these licenses. The one that I really care about is the human readable one. And that's where all I have to do is look at that graphic, click the link, and I know exactly what it means for my purposes. Now, there is a ton of legalese behind these, and that's a whole layer of this. And then there's the machine readable layer. And that's where like the metadata in your PDF. And if you don't have that machine readable layer, then when I use something like the Creative Commons image search, it's not going to come up necessarily. So I think that that's a really good example of why this is fine, because it does link, it does link back. This attribution is fine because it does link back to what the license is. It links to the legalese. It links to the information on how to make it machine readable. So I have access to all of the layers. This is not, because not only does it not provide attribution, it doesn't give me all three layers that really need to be present to make all of this legal. So there's that. How are we doing on time? 1:41. Okay, that's, oh, go ahead, questions.
In the chat, someone asked, what if you're creating something without need for active link?
What if you're creating something what?
Without need of an active link.
Without need of an active link. Example, please.
Static document with an image.
Oh, okay. Well, I think I actually, look away, this is moving very quickly. I think I maybe did an example of this. Here we go. So I don't actively link to these slides because they don't live anywhere accessible. I took this slide from David and Sarah, who work with the Open Textbook Network, but I don't have a way to link to it. So is this kind of an example? Is this along the lines of what they were talking about? Okay, cool. Yeah, so, and I mean, that's a really good question, because like if you take a photo of something, yeah, like you can link to the photo, but not the thing itself. There are a lot of cases. You do always need the link to the description of the license though. So you've always got to have that. But yeah, you don't always have to have the link in the attribution. Good question. And I think that the way you should approach this is kind of common sense. If I Google OTN directors and their names, I'm probably going to quickly find out who they are, right? Best practice is to always provide enough information that you can figure it out. And I think that's true for citing anything really, even outside of the Creative Commons, just doing your due diligence to provide the best attribution you can. Other questions? I have a question for everyone. After going through all of this, do you see yourself using Creative Commons licenses, and in what context? And as you can see, I have used the license on my slides. Yep.
I could see myself using it to consider pictures of others.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those online, the comment was easily citing pictures used on presentations. Absolutely. And it's so much cleaner, right? Gosh, I hate to like skip to another slide again, but you barely even notice when it's like one line of text with a tiny image in the corner versus like a huge works cited page. Yeah. Was there a question or a comment online?
Sharon says that if she uses them a lot in her slides, and then asks, are you saying that we still need active links on PowerPoint slides?
Active links to the Creative Commons license? That would be best, yes. I often do a lot of mine, I usually save, well, actually, so this is something to really think about. Sometimes I'll save a presentation, like a PowerPoint presentation, as a PDF. And I do that for a lot of different reasons. Sometimes it just transfers across different systems better. If I download something on another system, it might not have the right font, and then it substitutes a different font and it gets all weird. But if I save it as a PDF, that can't happen. But I need to really be thinking about what license I use there, because right now I'm saying I allow for editing and remixing, right? But if I save it as a PDF, which is impossible to edit pretty much, like, have I really allowed for people to make edits? So think about what format you're using. Even though a license is like legally how you go about it, you know, if you're not enabling editing, you're really not supporting a sharing community. Is there another comment online?
Kathleen says, I hope to create documents and brochures to educate patients that may be more attractive than without all image options.
Yeah, absolutely. Brochures and other marketing materials. It's really nice to, if you're creating them from scratch, define which, like how you want it to be shared. And then of course, using things like the Creative Commons search for images makes it really easy to find stuff that won't clutter your content. That's one of the reasons I really appreciated that Libraries Are for Everyone graphic, because the author says, yeah, it wouldn't make sense to have this license cluttering it up. So here's what you do instead. You know, it's really nice to be able to provide those directions. Another thing online?
Yes. Sharon says, I have seen also some attributions as unknown title, unknown author, license.
Yeah, you will see that sometimes. Unknown title, unknown author, licensed CC BY. That happens. That's a thing. And, you know, it is do your best. Yeah. I should add, I know there's maybe a few more comments coming in, but, you know, I took you to the Creative Commons website, and that's important. But the library has a few things to help you out as well. I'm just going to use the search bar, put in copyright, and oh, look. The library has a copyright guide. This is really complicated. It goes into all these different details. Fair use, if you're doing anything educational, it's really good to be up to speed on how fair use works. But then there's a tab about public domain and Creative Commons. And I believe this links out to a guide we have specifically on Creative Commons by the library. I probably made that guide. Yeah, so there are some support things as well. Fair use is particularly interesting because that's the term for how it's okay to use things in the classroom, to oversimplify it. But there are still restrictions. And I think it's also interesting that GIFs let's see, I use a Star Wars GIF. That also falls under fair use because if you think about it, it's like, well, they have copyright. I shouldn't even be sharing a GIF, should I? Well, the way you can think about fair use, a 1-second GIF is not going to deter someone from buying a movie. Whereas if I shared the file of the entire movie, it would hurt their profit. A GIF will not hurt their profits. Does that make sense? Yeah.
In the chat, we also have the question, what if we modified the picture? I thought we were supposed to show our modifications as a follow-up to the unknown, I don't know author.
Mm-hmm. What if we modify the picture of the unknown?
Yes.
Like the activity we did or a different thing? So if you found something that was unknown author, unknown title, but it provided the Creative Commons license, wouldn't it tell you what kind of license it was? Oops. So what I'm saying there is, oh, I disappeared? Oh no. Well, end of workshop. No, that really does wrap things up pretty much, so. I know you didn't necessarily want to be here, but I hope you got something out of it. At the very least, when you see those symbols on websites now, you'll know what they are, and you know how to cite your slides. So, thank you for coming.
You still have a question?
Oh,
Because
you still have a
you
question.
mentioned the Pokeball.
Okay, we're coming back to the Pokeball. Okay, what was that original question? Sorry. Fan art?
Yeah.
I have no idea how fan art works. And I think it's probably one of those things that kind of falls under fair use, kind of depends on the author. Because didn't, who am I thinking of? So like 50 Shades of Grey was fan fiction, right? Yeah. Yeah. But then didn't Anne Rice, like the original vampire author lady, like sue people for fan fiction? But the Twilight author didn't sue for 50 Shades of Grey. So sometimes it comes down to like whether or not an author's okay with fan fiction and whether or not an author's okay with profiting from fan fiction. And I'm sure the same is true of fan art. So kind of a gray area that I need to do more research on and will include in my next workshop, end of workshop. If you have any other questions, I have my contact info right here. atkinsge@missouri.edu. Don't hesitate to follow up. I'm always happy to answer questions. But also look at that FAQ page on the Creative Commons because they probably have the answer. Okay, now end of workshop? End of workshop. Thank you.